What's up, everyone? Thursday night football right here on RotoGrinders. Welcome to the show. I'm Justin Carlucci, joined by Jordan Cooper. What's up, man? How are you?
Good. Normally I don't get to sit. Normally I'm not on like the bottom of the screen. Like I feel like I need to try to headbutt you here on the bottom here. But it's nice to be here for Thursday night football. Not a normal Thursday night football game. Normally we get it's Jets Titans or some type of really bad game. But this is the highest total game of the entire game week. Seahawks Cardinals, and no matter what happens in this showdown, it's going to be some like $1,000 guy that no one has. That's going to win it for somebody.
Right away, the guy comes on my show and takes a Titans shot at me. I love it. But yeah, you're right. Let's see, Arizona, team total over 26, Seattle over 29. So, hey, anything's possible in Showdown slate. Anything goes. There aren't any rules. So here we are, and this might be one of the more highly anticipated games we've had in the 2020 season, and rightfully so. One of the big letdowns last week on main slate in terms of Vegas totals was the Seattle game. High total there, a lot of exposure on both sides. So, Russ and company coming off an ugly one, and everybody's drinking the Kyler juice now. They took a Hail Mary to beat the Bills last week, which was incredible. And here we are, huge NFC West showdown. Now, let me just ask you this, just in terms of main slate real quick. These are two of the quarterbacks with the highest upside every week, and it's a strange main slate with the Thursday night game and then the two primetime Sunday, Monday games. Not as much firepower on main slate, Jordan, right? I know you've been talking about it on some of your work this week so far.
No, I like it. I want these quarterbacks that you feel like, they have 30+ point upside. Once you take them off the slate, Mahomes off the slate, it feels like I can make my vomit stacks and win.
You could. Maybe you can make a vomit lineup tonight and win. Anything goes.
I'm definitely going to be doing that.
You got Kyler here, $13K, $1,200 more than Russ. Very, very, very high price tag. What are your, do you have any collective thoughts on the price tags of these two quarterbacks alone? Can we start there?
Well, I mean, they obviously have the highest floors, the highest ceilings. I think most lineups will have both. And I'm going to find it very hard to see that the optimal lineup in a large field GPP is missing both of them. Like, it's going to have at least one, like probably 90+% probability. It just really depends on if you're playing one in the captain, you're playing both together. I think it's going to be very tough to have either of these guys in the captain and play like a unique lineup. So like most slates, I don't play quarterback in the captain. But, obviously with the total in this game, you can. It just from a duplication perspective, I think I'm more likely to go with the wide receivers in the captain spot than the quarterbacks. I'm going to have to. There's not many options this slate. We have the inactives that came out. Carson's out. We got who else is out? We got Bo Scarborough is playing. He's not even in the player pool. DJ Dallas is in. We got Daniels, the tight end, is out for the Cardinals. Keyshawn Johnson is out for the Cardinals. Like, there aren't that many players in the player pool that are going to be really on the field. So, we're going to see just very condensed ownership on basically Murray, Wilson, Hopkins, Metcalf, Lockett, Hyde, Edmonds, maybe Drake, like very, very condensed. So if you're playing like 6 of those guys in your lineup, like, start over. Like, you're going to be duplicated like 700 times. So really, I'm looking to find lineup constructions that include both quarterbacks, include one quarterback, not in the captain, and try to get off the beaten path in like, 1 or 2 spots.
The public wants the shootout. Everyone's begging for the shootout. Everybody loves points. You don't have to build that way. Who's to say this isn't going to be like a 23-14 game? It's probably not a high probability, but it's an outcome. It's a realistic outcome. I think, there's some very fascinating game in terms of having recency bias when you see a guy that had 20 targets against the same team like 2.5 weeks ago. People are going to say, wow, they must have loved the matchup with Tyler Lockett. Yeah, well, obviously they did. Otherwise, he wouldn't have seen the ball 20 times thrown his way. So it's very, very interesting. Obviously you have Pat Peterson on the other side, who played DK Metcalf for over 80% of his routes that game. And Peterson, we know the prolific career he's had, wasn't that good early in the season. Kind of changed the finally hit his stride a little bit here. But Metcalf is just such a yak monster, I guess, as they say, that his upside is as high as anybody on this slate too. And we're seeing the higher ownership, especially at the captain slot projected. And if you have RotoGrinders Premium, you have a bunch of great articles, great tools. Eric does a great Showdown article, Slate IQ every slate, where you can see some projected captain ownerships, which is very useful and easy to help you figure out where to get the right leverage. And, there's a discrepancy there between Lockett and Metcalf. And, who's to say Metcalf's not going to be the one because he's so good after the catch and he's so physical. There's opportunities to get leverage here, right? Like, people aren't going to be rushing to play running backs in this game at captain because they love the wide receivers, and rightfully so. DeAndre Hopkins is a monster. Did you see his cash last week? Kyler Murray's new MVP, blah, 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 blah. Well, here comes Carlos Hyde with some volume. I don't know what to do on the other side there. Kenyon Drake is a definition of vomit, but you also have Chase Edmonds. But, who's to say that those running backs, you're going to get them at a substantially less ownership than most of these big wide receivers in this game. And that could be a route to think about too for tournaments as well. I know you tend to play more of the 150 max tournaments. What do you say? You like to scratch the lottery ticket and on the chalk donkey. So, what are you thinking in terms of leverage tonight, Jordan?
The thing that I need to figure out is how the field is going to react to Tyler Lockett's injury. Because he had an ankle injury. He's active for the game. Is he going to play his full role? Is he going to be 100%? I'm looking to go the way that the field isn't going. So, based on projections, if you think that, it's 100%, Lockett is probably the better play at 800 cheaper. I'm probably not going to play them both together, but I think I could rotate them both captain-wise and flex-wise. Depending, obviously, if I'm playing Hopkins in the captain, I'm playing Murray in the flex. If I'm playing Metcalf or Lockett, you play Wilson in the flex. That's a common correlation. The question comes into that we have DJ Dallas at 600. Right. The Carson's out. Hyde's going to be the lead back, but he's coming off an injury. They're going to have Bo Scarborough off the practice squad. He's not even in the player pool, so you don't have to worry about him, other than the fact of how many snaps is he going to take. So I think I think DJ Dallas will be the popular option in the cheap range. But how do you build unique lineups with DJ Dallas in the lineup? That's kind of what I'm looking for, of play DJ Dallas and leave some money on the table. I think based on Eric's premium article, which you could get, rotogrinders.com/premium, you get $5 off if you use the code in the YouTube description. Hit that like button while you're at it. Hit everything. Hit the link, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You could take your mouse. You could even put it right over Justin's face, and you could start clicking on it if you want. Right? If you don't like,
I'm ugly. Right over my face.
Right. You could click on me too if you like. I think it pauses your browser, but whatever. You could do it if you want. But according to the Slate IQ article, the top leverage comparison to ownership is a 4-2 build, with the loser of the game having the 4. So typically that leads to builds where the winner has the captain. So if you have the Cardinals winning, it would be Murray and Hopkins captain. And if you have the Seahawks winning, it would be Wilson in the flex and then Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf. Because we also see captain usage leverage. The most positive leverage is wide receiver 1. One of the lowest is RB1. RB2 actually has way higher leverage, less probability than RB1. And it makes sense on this slate because we take a look at RB1. That's Kenyon Drake. RB2 is Chase Edmonds. We have Carlos Hyde and DJ Dallas. So, based on this, I don't want to play Kenyon Drake or Carlos Hyde in the captain slot, but maybe I could play Chase Edmonds in the captain slot. It's going to be I would say the same about DJ Dallas, but if you try to make a DJ Dallas captain lineup, you could fit everyone you want, and then you're highly duplicated. So if you're going to play large field and play DJ Dallas in the captain, I would suggest, instead of taking Hopkins in that lineup, you just go down to Kirk. I know you have the money for Hopkins, but people, I mean, it's very easy to play that lineup. Or instead of playing Metcalf, you go down to David Moore, right? You leave 6,000 on the table. It's not, I mean, obviously it's going to be a lower median, but do you really want to be duplicated 700 times? Probably not. So that's kind of what I'm looking for on this slate as far as lineup construction. That I'm going to. I know Hyde is good. I think that he has a good value for volume, but if he doesn't get a touchdown, I think that's fadeable. I think I'm much more likely to play Dallas, and I think people will rush to Hyde. They will play Hyde in non-Russell Wilson lineups. That makes sense. You play Drake in non-Murray lineups because they'll vulture each other's touchdowns. So that absolutely makes sense, but I'm hoping more people play Drake and Hyde, and I'm more likely to play Edmonds and Dallas.
Edmonds, more involved in the pass game, is the better pass catcher, I guess, subjectively. I mean, I think he is. So I like that call there. Very good insight. And the thing is with Lockett's injury is like the only people that know how hurt he really is the people inside that locker room, right? Didn't practice Tuesday, as far as I know. Short week. Who knows? I mean, maybe he gets hit once and he's not the same. Maybe they limit his snap counts. If he's not 100%, David Moore will get some more time on the outside. And there's some very exploitable matchups there. David Moore always rears his ugly head in Showdown and Showdowns on DK. It's like he knows when they are, so he just ends up balling out. And it's not like he was dead in the last matchup. If you're like, well, what did he do against last matchup? He had like 50-some yards. I mean, that's fine. I don't live and die by it, but I like to use my resources. And I was looking earlier that Lockett's receiving yards props was like 66, and it was juiced on the under. Thought that was interesting. A game where the guy really hauled in 200 a couple weeks ago. So interesting. His status could maybe dictate the slate in terms of really what happens, And of course, everyone wants to shoot out. Everyone's going for the skill players. These kickers are going to be under-owned. I mean, Zane Gonzalez under 10%, in a very high Vegas total. And, Jason Myers, I'm sure, is similar here. Let me see where we're at here. Yeah, 10% as well. And both teams are going to move the ball, allegedly, according to Vegas. Who's to say they finished the drives? I mean, we saw a couple weeks ago, they both had like double-digit fantasy points. So, there's another guy who's cheap. If he has 15, 16 points, kicks a lot of field goals. Listen, I'm not saying put a kicker as your captain, but we did see it a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember who it was, Jordan. We talked about it, but I think it was a Ryan Suckup.
It was Suckup, yes.
1%, they didn't finish drives. They got in the red zone, between the 40 and the 20, and he was dynamite. So there are plenty of outcomes. I know you talk about it frequently, as people should, in terms of theory. And if there's an outcome, then it's possible. And maybe there's a bunch of field goals. Maybe Seattle can't finish drives. Who knows? Who's to say, right, at this point? So
I will not have a kicker in my captain slot.
That's fair.
I still will play kicker. I mean, I think the kickers and the defenses are going to go under-owned, but we've also seen, if you remember last year, we had that Rams-Chiefs game where if they're scoring a lot of points and there's not much punting, there's still more field goals. There's still more extra points. You still have defensive touchdowns. It could still be a high-scoring game, and kickers and defenses can get there. And based on the ownership projections that we have now, Jamino's hamster wheel, Zane Gonzalez is 7% owned as a kicker. Myers 15%. Seahawks D is 10. Cardinals is 7. The only thing you have to concern yourself is that they have to beat the lower-priced players. And obviously with DJ Dallas there at 600, it's going to be a little bit tougher. You still have guys like Hollister, Swain as a fourth wide receiver. We've seen him, get some targets. And obviously you have like guys like Isabella, especially in the red zone. Isabella's out there typically instead of Larry Fitzgerald, so he could catch a touchdown. You still have Greg Olsen. Old man Olsen's still around catching passes. Yeah. He's underneath the kickers. So, like in a game where none of these cheaper guys really get double digits, like we've seen Kingsbury, right? Like he'll drive down to the 7-yard line and then kick a field goal. So who doesn't say that Zane Gonzalez has 5 field goals this game? Sure. 2 40-yarders, and he's sitting there with 17 points. And for 4,200, you could say the same thing for Jason Myers. Either of the kickers. I don't suspect that either team is going to have a problem moving the ball. The question is, do they get in the end zone? And if they're going to move the ball and not get in the end zone, these kickers at 7 and 15% owned, I think are definitely in play.
Once again, thanks for tuning in to the RotoGrinders Thursday Night Showdown show. I'm Justin Carlucci here with Jordan Cooper. Devin is on the board for us here. Does a great job.
You moved away from me. They moved you away. I see you on the screen. Where did you go? I can't headbutt you anymore.
I had bad breath. I had to move over a little bit, man. Sorry. I had to just scoot over, A lot of good points, man. These cheap guys, there's 3 Seattle tight ends, and it's like Russian roulette, and they're very touchdown dependent. Like you said, Greg Olsen, I feel really old. Just that Greg Olsen's still in the league. I remember when he was drafted. It's like the NBA draft last night. Kenyon Martin Jr. got drafted, and I'm like, oh my God, Kenyon Martin Jr. We're really here. We're here right now. Greg Olsen's still playing football. Isn't very much so involved. Both of these offenses really don't do a ton with their tight ends. But, if they catch a touchdown at a cheap price, maybe they have 25 yards, then we're talking something like that. Olsen does get some time in the slot, so I think that's interesting. But yeah, you got Will Dissly, who was phenomenal last year before he got hurt. Really hasn't been heavily involved. Maybe he's just not where he needs to be. And Jacob Hollister, who every 5 games catches 1 catch for 6 yards and a touchdown. So it's anyone's guess there at tight end, quite honestly. But in a game where the Vegas total's super high and the ball's moving up and down, I really can't fault you for pretty much playing anybody that's on the damn field tonight. If you're saying, well, I'm playing Will Dissly, I'll be like, more power to you. Maybe he'll catch that touchdown. It's very possible. It's very possible. Good point on the kickers. The defenses are going to be very much so under-owned, and maybe it's not a probable outcome, but it's definitely possible. Russell Wilson didn't have a great game last week. Other interesting thing about the Cards, from what I've seen, they play a ton of man coverage, so I think that's interesting. Man, so you're playing big field here, big field GPP. There's a milli tonight. Someone's maybe getting $1 million to first if they're not duped. Hopefully, there's no stat corrections this time around because that was brutal from a couple of weeks ago. But maybe let's try to build something here, and let's just say it's a fairly high scoring game, and I don't know. Let's just say I love Hopkins. Don't get me wrong, super high floor. Everyone's drinking the Kool-Aid, but I don't mind going Christian Kirk at captain. So, in your opinion, and even in a large field GPP, are you pairing? Is there any outcome where you're not putting the quarterback with the receiver at captain? Is there any
that type of lineup typically only works on low scoring slate, low scoring games where there may only be 2 touchdowns in the entire game, and the quarterback is only getting 4 points for them and only throws for 150 yards. So they're not the highest. They're not one of the top 6 scorers. This game has a 57 total. So the likelihood that the quarterback is not in the flex with the wide receiver and the captain is remote. But based on, if we want to go by our own, Justin, I think we better abide by our premium content, especially here on YouTube. Right? The people don't get the premium content. They get a little taste. According to the premium content, Eric's Slate IQ, captain position, the biggest percentage slot is wide receiver 1. Wide receiver 2 is actually one of the lowest. So maybe Christian Kirk isn't that great of a great according to the past slate data. Okay. We just go for that. So let's just choose a wide receiver 1.
Let's do it.
If you want to play either. And here's who do you consider on Seattle to be the wide receiver 1?
On paper, it's DeAndre Hopkins, correct?
No, I'm talking about on Seattle.
Oh, my bad. I'm staring at Hopkins' face, and you're talking to me, and I don't see your face, and I got confused. That's a good question. We have a 1A and then a 1AA every other week. So I don't know.
Have it for the sake of this lineup. We know that Hopkins is wide receiver 1. So why don't we put him in the captain and Murray in the flex and start building this one?
Right. That's what I have. So let's talk about that. And yeah, it's anyone's guess who is going to be the wide receiver 1 from week to week in Seattle. The target share is so condensed. They don't throw the tight ends. Like I said, David Moore only pops up in showdown slates once in a while, which is tonight. But, over here in Arizona, we know Hopkins is the alpha wide receiver 1, and Kirk has his games for sure. But it's a lot of touchdown dependent type stuff. So let's throw Hopkins at the captain. Whoops, I accidentally have him in flex. My bad. So Hopkins the captain, and you're going to play Murray with him at his $13K flex salary, which is which is crazy, but here we are. So talk to me now. I mean, if you want to piggyback
well,
off.
obviously now, like if we play Wilson, we're gonna be in serious salary trouble. So I think this could be a lineup where we don't play Wilson in flex and we go for the more of the running game. Like I want to make that 4-2 lineup. Like if we're gonna make it that the loser is the Seahawks, the winner is the Cardinals. So the Cardinals have 2 players in there. So it'd be Murray and Hopkins. So now we have to find 4 Seahawks. I think we could play, someone like Carlos Hyde, right? You don't play Wilson. We play because look, if you put in Wilson, how much money you got? Nothing.
Right.
There's nothing
Exactly.
left.
Nothing.
So let's go for the rushing touchdowns. Let's go for Carlos Hyde there instead of Russell Wilson, because this is a large field GPP. Right. So that's fine. We don't have 60% owned, 70% owned Wilson in the lineup. We play Hyde. Maybe we could still play one of the 2 wide receivers. Maybe you could play Lockett in this lineup. I don't know how much money do we have left.
We got 15-6 left without Lockett yet.
Okay,
in 3
we put in
spots.
Lockett.
Oh, my computer is way behind here. It's like I said, I live in the middle of nowhere, so I'm getting like the bare minimum of the internet speed here in Amish country, Pennsylvania. We throw Lockett in here. All right. So yeah, I mean, still you're pretty low, but we talked about some cheap guys here, but we're looking for Seahawks because we're gonna go 2-4, right?
Right. We're gonna go 2-4. Maybe you throw DJ Dallas into this lineup also. You play both. A lot of people won't play both running backs together.
Right.
But at 600, what does DJ Dallas really have to do?
Exist.
Right. He just had exactly. Pretty much.
And I know for the sake of the show, we're not filling in anything, but you can see you have 5,600 left, which gives you some options here. Let me see. Let me scroll up here.
Right. You can always get in a Moore or a kicker or a defense. Right.
Exactly. We talked about the kickers, and it'll have a more chance to be unique the more money you leave on the table. And these kickers have a chance tonight, guys. They really do. They really do. But, good point. Eric's article, talked about the 3-3. And, when you think about a shootout and going back and forth, people tend to kind of build the 3-3s. And it's more comfortable to build a 3-3 in this type of game, right? But it's about getting uncomfortable to finish in that top 1% or better. Am I right here?
Yeah. If you're like, here's a tip for big field, large field, $1 million showdown contests. Even it doesn't matter if you're building 100 or 1 lineup. If you want to have a sweat, $15 sweat, 1 lineup, don't play it safe, right? Because you play it safe, you ain't. Don't dream about winning $1 million because you ain't, right? It's going to be like maybe maximum 12,000, maybe something like, which is still fine. But build that 1 lineup that when you build it and you look at it, you think to yourself, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm throwing money away." Like if that's your first reaction of like this may be money down the toilet, that means it's a great lineup. Like that's the lineup that you should be. If you look at it and go, well, that doesn't make any sense, then that's a good that's the lineup. If you're playing single entry stuff, if you're playing small field stuff, okay, you don't have to get that nutso. But if you want a shot at $1 million on DraftKings, like you take a look at the defense captains, the opposing quarterback, and like if the more it does, almost sometimes the more it doesn't look right, like the less likely it's duplicated, and you need one of those outlier outcomes in order to, even if you don't duplicate, like if it may not be a solo, but like most of the showdowns that I've won 3, it's been with 10 or less. And 10 or less when the price, when the first place is $100,000, $300,000, that's still a lot of money. But when it's like 400-way ties, like I'm not building those type of lines.
Right. Exactly. No, you're right. And I mean, look at the guy who won the main slate Millie a couple weeks ago. And it's not like I'm never really like endorsing it, but I think he played McLaurin and the defense going against Terry. Or it was like a receiver and I'm sure you saw it. It was like a receiver and a defense going against each other on the main slate. And I'm like, you know what? My brain would have never put that together. So, kudos to you. And it was not duped. And, you solo shipped it. But, even if you look at this lineup and you think it's a Christian Kirk game, throw him at captain, you'll have a little bit more money to play with. But like I said, DJ Dallas, like you said too, whatever his role is, is going to be a big factor in this slate. I mean, he will carry a little bit of captain ownership. He will, because people are going to be like, well, if I throw him in at nothing at captain, I can pick a bunch of guys with a bunch of high floors and fill my team around it. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, Lockett's health concerns me a little bit. Didn't get a full practice in this week is typically not a good sign, but that Arizona secondary is struggling. And I agree with you. I think both teams will move the ball for sure. Do you by chance have our chat up? Should we hit up some questions? What are you thinking here?
Sure. If you guys got QQs, feel free. I got the YouTube chat up, and obviously hit that thumbs up button, hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe button, hit ourselves in the hell. We're closer together now, Justin. Oh, okay. We're not socially distancing. We're not at least 6 inches apart on the screen. So I gotta move this way. Are we moving away from each other? Do I do that? Should I cough in your general? Is that polite? I guess not.
It is. It depends who you ask, I guess. Depends who you ask. I mean, what's your take? You asked me about who's the number one receiver in Seattle. Is that a rhetorical question? Is there an answer to that?
Well, I think someone even posted in the YouTube chat. I think they're right that based on our slate IQ calculation, it goes by price. So wide receiver 1, according to slate IQ, would be DK Metcalf.
Correct.
Because it's comparing to previous slates. So like the algorithm that does slate IQ doesn't know, right? He or she doesn't know. He doesn't know, right? So I'm assuming wide receiver 1 is Metcalf. So maybe that means I'm going to be playing a lot of Metcalf then.
Could be.
Eric Johnson asked, how come no one is on Isabella, even though I mentioned him before?
Well, he
gets red zone targets. So I mean, how much do I have to do we have to mention him more?
I mean, he played 12 snaps last week, I think. Hey, I love Isabella, right? I mean, he has his games now and then. Like I said, anybody who's going to see the field is in play in this slate for sure. Am I like sprinting to play Andy Isabella? No, but I can see it for sure. I can see it.
Right, it's Showdown. Like, dude. I mean, I know I say it all the time, but as long as you're getting one snap, you could play whatever you want. Like, I won a Showdown. My biggest Showdown win was playing a guy in flex that got 2 snaps. Literally got 2 snaps. Of course, on those 2 snaps, he got 2 touchdowns. But it was the Aldrick Robinson Vikings, whatever. He got 2 red zone snaps, and they threw it to him. But he was like 2% owned, and like no one was playing wide receiver 4 for the Vikings. That's what you need to do. You have to realize you're going to lose most of the time, but you have to take shots like that. So if you want to take a shot on Isabella, take a shot on Isabella. Max Williams, who knows? Maybe he shows up with 2 touchdowns today, right in the red zone with Kyler Murray. Maybe it's Dan Arnold. Maybe the Cardinals D. Russell Wilson's not been throwing the ball all that well. Maybe he gets picked off 3 times, and the Cardinals D runs pick 2 pick sixes. Maybe the Cardinals D a captain, right? Maybe that ends up being the one that works out, and they can jam everyone else in. These sound like crazy lineups, but like you could make a case for an outcome. Like you could tell the story where this lineup is the winner, and it may be lower probability, but you're putting in $15 and trying to win $1 million.
Right. And, this is sport. Sport is variant. That's why they play the game. There's many outcomes for every game. The quote unquote, we say this all the time. The right plays aren't always the right plays. Maybe you thought Metcalf was the right play and Lockett saw 20 targets. How'd that make you feel? Probably not very good, but it happened. So, the wrong plays make money. That's where it is. It's not a wrong play. It's a quote unquote wrong play. Am I right? I mean,
right. Well, you're playing lineups. So, I mean, who cares about the players? I mean, Eric Johnson's got, how about Larry Fitzgerald at captain? I mean, you can make a lineup like that and jam everyone else in. I don't know necessarily what Larry Fitz's ceiling is, especially since he hasn't been really getting that many snaps in the red zone. So, I mean, this could be a Larry Fitz 3 touchdown game. I mean, he could take one in the slot and, crawl to the end zone or what. I mean, it's not like he's the fastest guy in the world. It could happen. It's lower probability. That also means less people will play that. So if you want to play Larry Fitz and the captain, go ahead. Have fun.
Yeah, a couple slates ago, I was pretty close. I played a handful of higher 180, whatever the 180 tournament's called. The Baltimore game, I had a Willie Snead captain team. Couldn't quite get there. But, it happens. I mean, Willie Snead is just, at this point, I can't insult Larry Fitzgerald, but it doesn't really, it doesn't have the speed, kind of just exists. Although Snead is getting a little more popular. But what's Fitzgerald's role right now? I mean, you have Hopkins, who's elite, and Christian Kirk really coming on. But, Fitzgerald, if this is a pass-happy game, Seattle gets exploited. It could happen for sure. For sure.
What you could also do, if you want, play for the ultra-low scoring game. Put Drake in captain, put Hyde in captain, play both quarterbacks. You play no wide receivers, and you play the kickers and the defenses, right? You play that. I mean, that's the ultra low scoring game. Right. And with these ownership percentages, you pair some of those things together, you're going to be fairly unique. You take a low owned one off with that, right? You play multiple running. I mean, who's going to play a lineup with Carlos Hyde, DJ Dallas, Kenyon Drake, and Chase Edmonds, like all four running backs? And then you take one of the quarterbacks, throw someone in captain, one of the kickers and defenses. But I mean, that lineup wins if all the touchdowns come through the ground and it's a low scoring game, right? None of the wide receivers get there. You have a wide receiver that goes 5 for 60, but like the running backs have touchdowns. So that overcomes it. Is it something that I'm going to do tonight? No, but I mean, you can. I mean, I'm only playing 10 lineups tonight because, on the days that I have shows, I'm not building so many. So, out of the 10, am I considering doing that? But I am considering playing Hyde and Dallas together. I have no problem playing two running backs from the same team together when they're that cheap. And I think some people make groups where only one of these two running backs, or only one of these two kickers, or only one of these two things. And I could get a little bit of an advantage where if Russell Wilson, there's an outcome where the Seahawks score 3 touchdowns and Russell Wilson doesn't have a passing touchdown because it's two to Hyde and 1 to Dallas or something. Or who knows? It's a jet sweep to one of the wide receivers, right? It could be one of those types of plays. Right. Or screw it. He has 1 passing touchdown, but at his price at 11.8, he just doesn't make the top 6 players that would be in an optimal lineup. So having the wide receiver that caught that touchdown, right, with the 2 running backs, like that, there's an outcome where that exists. I think between both quarterbacks, I think it's much more likely that I play Kyler rather than fade him, because I think Kyler Murray has, because of his goal line rushing, that he has more outs to get there and vulture points from his teammates than Russell Wilson does. So, if I had to choose between playing one quarterback in my lineup, I think it's more likely to be Murray and not Wilson.
Good point. Russell Wilson, 1 rushing touchdown this year. I mean, that's just not who the guy is. They're not design running Russell Wilson. Kyler's getting design runs. They're calling RPOs. He's getting the call. It's not surprising anymore, right? What was his props for carries? I don't remember what it was. It was in the teens. The guy is running the ball, a lot. It's not by chance. Murray, like you said. And obviously Murray and maybe Kenyon Drake negatively correlate. On a main slate with 14 games, you typically don't want to play running backs from opposing teams or running backs on the same teams. That's negatively correlated. But it all goes out the window on Showdown. I mean, I referenced Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams a lot of times last year when they were kind of 50-50 split. How about the good old Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman when they were in Atlanta, playing Showdown slates? I mean, the guys were going to see the field. And if Carlos Hyde isn't 100%, I mean, who's to say that, DJ Dallas might not see 34% of the snaps? Does Pete Carroll really want to play Bo Scarborough? I don't think so. At least DJ Dallas has been here. He kind of knows what's going on. He knows the system. He's played snaps before. So, yeah, I mean, this isn't going to be 100% Carlos Hyde. It just probably won't be. And hamstrings are funny. All it takes is 1 run. You run out of bounds. You just step the wrong way. I don't know. There's so many outcomes for tonight, as usual. But, there really isn't. I think you made a good point about if you actually love your lineup, it's probably not going to win $1 million because it's just not different enough. There's nothing that makes you scratch your head. You study all these top players in the world, as do many people. But if you go through the tournaments where they're playing 100 lineups, 150 lineups, yeah, they might have 5 towards the top in the top 1% if their core hits, but if you look towards the bottom, they probably have 20, 30 teams where there's some guys in it that didn't even play or DNPs, right? Because they're looking for that uniqueness, that less than 1% own, and they're willing to, cut their losses. And, if you're wrong 99 times, that 100th time better count. So I'm with you. You made a lot of good points. Any other questions in the chat? Anything popping off to you over there? What did you call it? QQs?
QQs. It's called QQ. On RG, we call them QQs, right?
Oh, well, I'm a noob. I'm the RG noob.
Well,
so.
I mean, that's what they were before me. I had to call them because they made me call them QQs because apparently that's the name. I don't like the name. Why can't we just use one Q? For crying out loud. Why do we have to waste a Q?
Hey, I'm learning something new every day, man. QQ.
But people are asking, like you put it out like, oh, if you're playing 100 lineups, you could do that. No, if you're playing one lineup, play a risky lineup. If you're playing a large field contest.
Yeah, exactly. What are you playing? Are you playing against 10 people? Are you playing a double up?
Right. I'm talking about if you're playing the million maker tonight and you're just playing 2 lineups, like you're playing 30. It's a lottery ticket. Like oh my God, I have to minimum cash this. No. Play for the moon. Or don't play those contests. Go play a smaller field contest if you want. So I mean, the notion that you need millions of lineups. When I won the Showdown with the Vikings, I hand built 10 lineups. When I won the Super Bowl second half Showdown, I hand built 6 lineups at Showdown at halftime and won that. Like you don't need, but you have to build lineups that you think that could win with very little duplication and not worry about, well, if it doesn't min cash, you can't eat tonight. Well, you shouldn't be playing that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you're playing to min cash or you feel good about min cashing, that's really not the mentality you need in this day and age of DFS. How about Alex Collins? Had 11 carries last week. They're like, you know what? We're not even going to bring it back up. We had Carlos.
Well, because he can't even be on the team. They have to sign him to a contract or something. They brought him up from the practice squad. That's the reason why Bo Scarborough, it's possible that we don't see any Bo Scarborough today. You can play him on FanDuel, I know, but you can't play him on DraftKings. But I don't expect Bo Scarborough to get any snaps. I think he's just there. It's just an emergency. They would have rather, if Collins was active, then it would make that backfield a little bit more messy. But I don't think I'm worried about Bo Scarborough at all.
No, I'm not worried about him whatsoever. Really not. Yeah. What else is on your mind? Anything else? Any more QQs? Or are we going to pack up and head out of here?
I'm waiting for the QQs in the YouTube chat.
All
I mean,
right.
I still got to build my lineups after this show. I mean, I like looking at the DK Sportsbook for the touchdown props just to see if this is a little bit, higher than I thought, low owned plays. I mean, we have Kyler Murray. He's the highest odds for a touchdown, -162. Metcalf -148. Lockett -125. Then we get Hopkins at +105, Hyde at +135, Drake at +145. But then we get David Moore at +165. We have Olsen at +250. So David Moore at +165, he's 4,800. That's not that much different than Carlos Hyde, who's going to be much higher owned. And it's not all that far away from he has better odds to score a touchdown than Christian Kirk, and he's cheaper. So I mean, I know that prop lines are not necessarily the most efficient, but sometimes they can give you a little clue on, especially when for a ceiling, you need touchdowns from these players. You're not expecting David Moore to have a 9 catch for 112-yard game. I mean, he's not going to get that many targets. So if you could get 2 David Moore touchdowns on 5 for 40, at 4,800, I mean, who knows if he's not the winning captain.
Right. No, I like David Moore. I like it for sure. He has 8 red zone targets this year, which is only 1 less than DK Metcalf and only 2 less than Tyler Lockett. So when they get down there, they obviously have a lot of splash plays, but when they get down there, it's pretty spread out. Russ isn't exactly locked in. Of course, Lockett had 3 of those in the last matchup in week 7, which is just crazy. But yeah, Lockett's been pretty all or nothing this year. He had the crazy game against, Dallas? Where he had, was it 3 touchdowns against Dallas too? So his health might dictate the slate. I think he might come in a little over-owned because people are game log hunting. I'm going to be a little overweight on David Moore, like for sure. If I'm trying to look at anybody contrarian-ish here, I like the idea of going a little over the field on David Moore. And I also think these kickers are too low. I think, they have such an opportunity to put the ball through the uprights. They're not going to finish. Both teams are not going to finish drives every time. So I think that's a good look too. And they're cheap. You're looking for value. The kickers are right there, and they're low owned. So you're getting some leverage too. So that's my 2 cents there. That's all I got for you. That's all I got for you tonight, Jordan.
So it's okay. It's perfectly fine. You could be a chalk donkey all you want. I'll go and I'll see if I could win the million. Most likely it ain't gonna happen, right? Most likely it ain't gonna happen. Most likely I'm gonna play 10 lineups and burn, just to flush them in the toilet and wait for the next showdown. So I mean, like I know this is. I mean, but overall, I've played 3 years, 2.5 years of NFL Showdown. I'm wildly up. So like to me, like in order to hit those big wins, you have to play. You have to play for first place. You have to play for, minimum of like 10 dupes or something like that. And if you're not going to do that, I know I stress this all the time. If you're not going to play that way, just play smaller play better payout structure contests. If you're looking to turn $10 into $20, like then just don't play. Just don't have the fear of missing out of like, well, I'm going to build, like if you build a lineup, let me just give you, for the people that are playing cash games or something on those degenerates. I mean, for cash games on showdowns are kind of wild to me. But if you're playing both quarterbacks, Carlos Hyde, DJ Dallas, one of the Seahawks wide receivers, like that type of lineup, like just play them in double ups. Like those lineups are not. You're not winning first place with those lineups. Like and you're leaving all the money. You're spending what, like 49.5 or above on that type of lineup, and like the lowest owned player in your lineup is like 35% owned. Like you're not going to win a GPP. If you download the CSV of that big contest on DraftKings, you will find so many lineups like that. Like you will find like 20% of the field has that. It pays the rake because those lineups have very little chance at first place. I'm building lineups with a lot of chance at first place or last place. So it's like going to be one or the other. So if you're going to play those large field GPPs, take some risks. Even if it's one lineup, dollar and a dream it. That's perfectly fine. Or just go play the $5 single entry or something. Go play a 100-man contest. You'll make more money if you're going to play those lineups. Like you could win 100-man with that type of lineup. You could make, and 100-man, you're getting like 12x or something on your money. Like, dude, if you want to make money, like, yeah, go ahead, go do it that way. But these large field contests, like you got to look at your lineup and hate it. If you don't hate it, you're not playing well.
Love it. Good stuff as always. Jordan, where can the people find you on Twitter?
I'm on Blender HD. I'm trolling everyone as usual.
Sounds good. All right, Blender HD, also known as Blenderhead, whether he likes it or not. I'm Justin Carlucci for producer Devin and the rest of the RotoGrinders team. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck and have a good week, everybody.